Hello, this is Mike with the NetPicks Options Academy. This is the midweek update for Wednesday, October 21st. So we'll go ahead and start out by taking a look at the market big picture wise. We'll take a look at the daily charts of the major US index products, and then we'll jump into some of the individual equities that we look at. A lot of setups printing here over the past 24 hours, so we've got a lot to get to. So if you go back to the weekend recap that was posted on Saturday, we talked about the market reaching some pretty key resistance areas. Okay, and taking a look at this daily chart of the SPY, you can see that we actually probed up above one of those key levels over the past 3-4 sessions. That red line, that solid red line, I can zoom in a little bit further. That is actually the 200 period exponential moving average. Okay, so what I pointed out over the weekend, we've seen a heck of a run to the upside. So I mentioned, if we broke that level, could we see a run up to that 206 level, up around that 200 period simple moving average? It was definitely possible. But what was concerning to me as we continue to head to the upside, if you take a look at the volume down here, look at how the volume continued to decrease. It continued to flatten out. Okay, that's concerning. It was giving a warning signal that the bulls may be running out of steam here on the upside. It's been a pretty impressive rally here the last couple of weeks. Then we got into today's session, today being Wednesday, and we had our training room open today for our options members. And what we talked about initially, even though the market looked higher on the session, there was a lot of red flags signaling a slowdown coming. And what was interesting, even though the market was green on the session, the internals were very weak. And I'll show you those internals charts in just a second to show you where we saw the weakness kicking in around lunchtime. Okay, so we saw the volume decrease. We saw the internals that were very mixed today. And then when we took a look mid-morning, we noticed that even though the market was higher, the leadership was really in a couple of symbols. Apple was strong on the session, and Boeing was strong after earnings were out that got released this morning. So those were the two names that were really holding the market up. When you see that type of a scenario, okay, that's a very dangerous scenario, because if you see a few specific names holding the market up, if those names lose it, the market's in big time trouble. So we actually did see some selling here this afternoon. Nothing terrible, but it is a sign that we could probably be in for a pullback here over the next couple of days. Okay, so if we do pull back, like I mentioned over the weekend, I would like to see us test the yellow mustard colored lines right here. Those are the 50 period simple and exponential moving averages. I think if we can get a pullback into those levels, that's a great place to start. Okay, we'll see if we find support there, see if the market wants to head higher from those levels. So that's what I'm looking for. If we continue to head higher, if we reverse right back to the upside here tomorrow, I still have my eye on that 206 level. That could still be an area where the bulls want to push this market to. We've got some catalysts to keep in mind the next couple of days as well. We've got the ECB conference tomorrow, the press conference. So we've got to be cautious of that. If there's any type of QE announced or any type of announcement on interest rates, that could lead to some pretty big moves pre-market for us here in the U.S. So the ECB, for those of you that may not be familiar, that's the European Central Bank. Okay. We also have a number of big names releasing earnings the next couple of days. I'm thinking specifically of Amazon and Google. Okay, those are some pretty big tech names that could lead to a big move in the overall market. So we'll want to watch those. Those are both out tomorrow. So the catalysts are there for a big move. I tend to lean towards the bearish side. I tend to lean towards a move to the downside, but we'll wait and see what the market gives us over the next couple of days. Everything I just talked about on the SPY really holds true for the other two index products as well. We can take a quick peek here. This is the NASDAQ ETF. You'll notice that we did pull back here today. We closed near the lows of the session. Very, very weak afternoon. But we have that cluster of moving averages below us that should act as some support. So the bears have the work cut out for them. If we're going to get some nasty moves to the downside, we're going to have to break some of those support levels. In order for that to happen, we're going to need to see volume pick up. We're going to need to see volume spike. We're going to need to see some fear come back into the market. So I'll watch that closely here over the next couple of days. If we pull back, watch for that 105 level to act as some support, at least initially. And then finally on the Dow, take a look at the Dow ETF, which is symbol DIA. And you'll notice that we did find resistance right at that 200 period exponential moving average, just like the SPY. Okay, and we started to pull back right off of that level here today. So no surprise. I mean, look at how many green candles that we had in a row here the last couple of weeks. So it's good, healthy selling here today into the close, and we'll see if we can get that to continue over the next couple of days. Now, I mentioned the internals. Let's take a look over there here a second. So I've covered these internals in some previous videos. Very important for me to track intraday because I personally don't believe it's enough just to look at how many points the Dow or the S&P is up or down on the day. You really want to dig in deeper to see where the strength or the weakness is at. So when we took a look at these internals earlier today in our training room, we pointed out that it was not broad-based buying. There was buying across a couple of big names, but other than that, it was pretty weak. And we actually saw the up volume versus down volume here. We wanted to see it 2-to-1 positive on a strong trending day to the upside. It was actually at minus 1.4 to 1. Okay, so what that was telling me was there was actually more volume going into the names that are moving to the downside. Okay, that's not something that you want to see if you're in a bullish position. Okay, so that was warning signal number one for me that there was not strong buying across the board. Next, look at the advanced decline line. Okay, earlier today we were sitting at around minus 400 when we were in our training room around lunchtime. So I mentioned, even though the market's up on the day, keep a close eye on this because there's actually more names down on the session than up on the session. Not a signal of a very strong market. Okay, the tick, if you take a look at the 15-minute chart on the NYSE tick, you can see that we did have a couple of strong plus 1,000 readings here today. But look at all of these minus 1,000 readings this afternoon. Okay, we had 4 or 5 of them. What that's telling me was there was 4 or 5 instances of strong selling extremes. Okay, it intensified as we headed into the afternoon. Look at where the up volume versus down volume finished at. Minus 3.4 to 1 negative. What that's telling us is there's more volume going into the negative names. It just showed us under the hood, price action was deteriorating quickly. Okay, if that 5-minute chart of the SPY in the lower right-hand corner, after bouncing around early in the session, we bounced around the VWAP, that volume weighted average price, a couple of times. We finally gave it up here this afternoon. Okay, and we closed right on the lows of the day. So what does that tell me here for tomorrow? Well, of course, we've got the news out. The ECB, like I mentioned a few moments ago, that's really going to be the catalyst. But if you're just basing your decisions purely off of technicals and purely off price action, it was a very weak close today. Okay, I would like to position myself here for a move to the downside over the next couple days, and you'll see why that is when I look at some of these individual charts here in just a second. So very, very important to watch these internals throughout the day. Let's check in on some of our open positions. We talked about these over the weekend. Apple, we've been in this long trade on Apple, and we've talked about it in the last couple of videos. It was kind of frustrating because we haven't been able to get that breakout move to the upside, and we got stuck in this coiled spring pattern. What that means is when we get into this sideways move like we did right here, Apple's not a name that likes to stay quiet for long. So at some point, that spring is going to get so tight and it's going to pop. Okay, you never know which way it's going to pop. Well, the last couple of sessions here, we did break up to the upside. Now, we didn't quite hit that full target, but the nice part about the system is we start to get 80, 90% of the way to the full target. Look at what our stop did. We now have a trailing stop in place right around the first target. So if we do get a lower open tomorrow, okay, we're going to get taken out, but we're going to get taken out with a partial profit. Much rather take a partial profit than a full loss, right? So nice position to be in. Full target ultimately is up at 116.16, and our stop here heading into tomorrow is right around the 113.40 level. Okay, so I'm in a long call position out in the November options, and I'll manage that here over the next couple days, see how we end up. We also talked through a couple of positions in the index ETFs. We talk about SPY and QQQ. Let's check in on those. We are fortunate enough, even though all of these long trades that we're talking through, I mentioned over the weekend, I'm in very small positions here. I've been trading very small size because I want to be protective of the upside. Okay, I felt we were overbought. I didn't want to put a ton of risk on the table and chase an overbought market. So I have exposure to the upside, but it's very, very small. Now, on this long trade, over the weekend, we mentioned that we did hit first target. That allowed us to move the stop up to break even, which it's still there. It's at 201.27. Okay, so if we get a move to the downside tomorrow, we will get taken out of that trade at a break-even stop. So no harm done. Notice on the candle here that we got this afternoon, it hasn't closed yet. Okay, but we do have a new short setting up. It looks like we're going to get a short set up just below the 200 level. So if we do get some selling pressure the next couple days, we may potentially be able to jump into a short trade there on SPY. So I'll be watching that one closely. If we do trigger into that short, I'll be looking at some long put options out in the November options. So yesterday, obviously from the videos, you can tell that I'm a swing trader. Okay, I'm looking to take positions for a period of days or even out to a couple of weeks. But there are going to be times where if the market gets moving very quickly, we may have some day trades set up. And we actually had one of those yesterday on Tesla. Okay, let's zoom in and show you what I'm talking about here. So this is yesterday's session. We got this trade to trigger in just before lunch, and by the close, we had already hit full target. So it's great that we were able to book a full profit, but it's not ideal long term because when we get those day trades, it takes way too much time to manage them. Okay, I don't want to have to sit there and watch the charts all day. So I'm not going to complain about a full profit, but I just wanted to point out that when the market starts to move fast, we may have some of those day trades from time to time. So we are now flat. We're waiting for the next fresh setup on Tesla. So nice full winner there on the downside. All right, let's also take a look at some of the financials. Try to zoom in here to Goldman Sachs here a second. We're actually looking at this setup here on the downside. This is actually our first short trade that we've taken, the first trade period that we've taken after earnings. The earnings were out last week. So we did initiate a trade here on the downside. We talked about this in our training room today. Many of our members were looking at this. We talked about putting on a put position, either a long put or a long put spread, just depending on how aggressive you want it to be. And we did it out in the November options. And now we're already into a small profit. So the targets on the downside 177.40 and 174.80. The target up at the stop up at 186.22. So when you start to see some big market leaders like the financials, like the index products, when you start to see those roll over, okay, those are big names that a lot of people are looking at. So if these financials give it up over the next couple of days, we could see a nice little pullback, a healthy pullback, and that's why it has me leaning towards looking for a move to the downside. All right, let's take a quick peek at Amazon as well, because this is another one we looked at over the weekend in the weekend recap. We came in Monday morning and we were fortunate enough to hit that full target. So full target reached on the upside. So really nice trade. The nice part about this, not only did we hit full target, we got out of the trade before the earnings. The earnings are out tomorrow, so I don't want to do anything. I want to be flat heading into earnings, and it was great that we were able to sneak out of a full profit. And look how accurate the system identified the target. Okay, I'm almost to the tick there. So really nice trade. Closed out of my call spread, booked the profit, and now I will remain flat until the earnings are released. All right, a few more names to take a look at. Here's Facebook. This is our reversal setup. Some of you were able to join us for some of the webinars that we had here earlier in the week. And we talked about this Facebook trade that had actually set up during our webinar and triggered in. It's still valid. We triggered in. We just need some follow through to the downside. We've got targets down at 95.09 and 93.04. The stop up at 100.09. So looking for some downside follow through. We are overbought. You can see the move to the upside. So a good healthy pullback on Facebook would be a welcome sight. I am in November put options here on the long side. Bought some put options on Facebook. The reason I'm buying a lot of options right now, the volatility is low. There's very little opportunity to sell premium because these options are so cheap. I much prefer to sell higher volatility. So you can see the VIX, it did get down to a low of 1440 today. When you start to see those levels hit, you know that the volatility is getting very cheap. Okay, and it's very difficult to sell premium in that type of an environment. So we are leaning towards the long side as far as buying option goes right now. So to play the move to the downside, I'm trying to buy puts or buy put spreads if you're looking to be more conservative. Let's also take a look at the Dow ETF. This is another one that we've been keeping a close eye on here the last couple of videos. So we did trigger into a short trade here as well today. That entry point was down at 171.55. You may have pushed that entry point down to 171.40 just to try to work around the 0.5 level. That 171.5 level. Regardless of where you put the entry point at, it did trigger in. So here again, long November puts on DIA. We're in the trade. Targets down at 170.35 and 168.83. The stop up at 173.95. So the plan is in place for tomorrow. I already know where my targets are at. I know where my stop is at. And now I let the trade work. I stay patient and see if we can get some follow through on the downside. We took a look at Goldman Sachs. Let's also take a look at Citigroup because we also had a short trade here that triggered in today. The financials somewhat led the charge to the downside here. That was good to see if you were one of those traders looking for a move to the downside. So you can see here we got a short trade to trigger in 52.22. Targets are now down at 51.32, 50.51, and the stop up at 53.88. So you can start to see a lot of my charts, a lot of the same stocks that we've looked at for the last number of weeks now. This is my watch list. You're seeing a lot of names here set up on the short side. So that's why when I say that I'm bearish, you can start to see the things that I'm looking at. I'm seeing weak internals intraday. I'm starting to see a lot of short setups. I'm starting to see a lot of charts that are looking tired. So I'm looking for a move to the downside here as we head into the second half of the week. So as always, if you have questions on any of these charts, if you want me to take a look at specific stocks or ETFs that you might have your eye on, feel free to send me an email directly, mike@netpicks.com. For tomorrow, it's a big day. We've got news out of the ECB before the open. We've got a lot of earnings after the close tomorrow. So tomorrow is really going to set up, in my opinion, it's going to set up the market for the next week or so. I think tomorrow is really going to be the day that's going to, tip the market's hand here for the next few sessions. All right, so I'm leaning towards the downside. I'll be back over the weekend to take a look and see how some of these trades played out, see if we can start to book some profits, continue to book profits. We talked about the Amazon full target winner on the upside. We talked about locking in profit on Apple. We've got a lot of break-even stops in place. So even though the market's been a little choppy, a little slow here the last 3-4 sessions, we're still booking some really nice profits. So really prime time to be involved in the market right now. So I'm going to wrap this video up here. I'll be back again over the weekend to take a look at where we're at heading into next week. So happy trading, everybody.